Hey everybody, welcome to week 2 of class. In this video, I'm going to be talking through what we're going to get into during week 2 of the course. We are shifting from really introduction last week to looking at diversity concepts this week. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in your readings. So thank you everybody who jumped right in, provided their introduction, there's a lot to do during week 1 and there's still a little bit of time during week 2 to get some of those assignments completed. I gave a little bit of extra time. I built that into the course timeline. So if you haven't completed everything, be sure to check the due dates on the course timeline document and get those things turned in. But yeah, let's jump into week 2, where we're looking at diversity. So we are really looking at, we're broadly discussing concepts related to diversity and racism. So you will need to read chapter 1 in your textbook, and there's a few other things that I posted below that will be helpful too. And then our group A students will lead us in our discussion related to racism. So I will talk a little bit more about the groups I've talked about those already, but I'll clarify again in the video that I do when I talk about the assignment. So please note, I always post things in the order that I created this, and it makes sense to me for you to complete everything. Week 1, that made a lot of sense because there was so much content. For the rest of the course, the content is a bit more streamlined, and I think it kind of makes sense. You read the content, you do the assignment. You read the content, you do the assignment. So that's our general kind of setup for each week through the rest of the semester. So let's check out our week 2 Moodle book and see what content we are going to be reading this week. So we're going to be in chapter 1 of your textbook, again, diversity concepts and a discussion of racism. So we're going to be reading more about that, less in terms specifically to people who have substance use disorder, but more, what is diversity? What does that mean? What is racism? What does that mean? We are going to be given a definition of racism from our textbook, and that is the definition when we're going through the course. If we're calling things out as racism, we need to be able to define it in a similar way. It gives us this common language. And if you don't like the definition of racism from the textbook, post about it. Let's talk about it. So just a note on the textbook, I'm able to provide the first 3 chapters. So chapter 1, 2, and 3, which will get us through weeks 2, 3, and 4 of the semester. But once we hit week 5 of the semester, you will need to have purchased a textbook and or acquired it. You can rent it, you can borrow it, whatever that looks like for you. But as week 5 forward, you're going to be on your own for textbooks. I want you to read this Introduction to Cultural Competence. Please note that the link here takes you to this really large document called Tip 59. And I just want you to read chapter 1 for this. So you don't have to read, if you open it up and see, God, how many hundreds of pages does Katie want me to read this week? I don't. I just want you to read the first chapter. It's also, I guess I include the entire thing because we'll be in this document later in the semester, but also for those of you who are interested, it's a good resource. Then go through these links on lived experiences and understanding prejudice. And then there is an optional recommended reading here by Lawson and Lawson, A Rationale for Planning, Treatment, and Prevention of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse for Specific Populations. So why do we even look at specific populations? Why is that important? This is an optional reading, and I've included these Lawson readings almost every week, and they're every week except one, I believe, they're optional. And it's really because the information is really foundational, but it's also somewhat dated. So because it's so foundational, I think that it's helpful. But because it's so dated, what I also want you to learn and what we're using the current research and the current information. So it's there for a resource, but it's optional because it is dated. So let's check out our next steps and assignments. So after reading through all of the assigned content for this week, you will, if you've not completed the week 1 assignments, you have until September 6th to write the response post to the introduction forum, until September 7th to complete the course overview quiz from week 1. So if you haven't done those things yet, be sure to prioritize those and get those completed. Then you're going to participate in discussion question number 2 this week, looking at racism. Group A is going to be leading our discussion by providing the primary posts. And then all students, whatever group you're in, including group A, are required to complete response posts. So just one note really quick on groups. So while all of you are assigned to groups, all assignments are completed individually. So the group only serves to tell you which discussion questions you're responsible for posting a primary post in. I'll edit this. This allows you to have 3 primary posts during the semester instead of having to do one every week. But you do have to do response posts every single week. So check out the What Group Am I In Moodle page for more information. When am I supposed to be doing primary posts? When do I, and I'll discuss that a little bit more there'll be a video posted here that goes into more detail about what I'm looking for in the forum. And then next week, we're going to shift our topic, and we're going to be looking at privilege, specifically white privilege, but privilege and stigmatized identities. And then group B will lead us in our discussion. So if you have questions, head on over to the homepage and use that questions forum. If your questions are individualized or really just specific to your situation, feel free to drop me an email. When you email me, please do put CAS140X and then question about. If you don't use your account, I can't respond. And if you don't format your subject line in that way, CAS140X, and then my topic, then we're going to spend more time figuring out what class you're in of mine than me just answering your question. So thanks for checking this out. Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about you. Thanks, everybody.